It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a Friday. Gary, what a minute.
Well, what a crazy day it was. We got so much to talk about. You know, look on the exchange of political prisoners for criminals, spies, and Putin's assassin.
Yeah.
We simply have to go to the Wall Street Journal, whose reporter was released.
Yep.
The ugly truth is that Russia and other thuggish regimes take hostages because it works.
Yep.
Iran has also made it a policy to arrest innocent Americans to trade for Iranians justly held in the United States. China has done the same with Canadians. These countries know that hostages become powerful political symbols in the West as pressure on democratic leaders increases to negotiate their release. Mr. Putin has paid no price for imprisoning Mr. Gerskovich, which is their reporter, beyond bad publicity, and that he can ignore. At the same time, he has won the release of his spies and an assassin. The release of Krasikov means he can tell his killers that even if they are captured abroad, he has a strategy for release.
Krasikov, by the way, knew that and told his captors that. Said, Russia's not going to let me rot in prison. I will be getting out of here. He knew he'd be going back to Russia. The top assassin for Vladimir Putin.
Because all of this poses an awful dilemma for U.S. policymakers. Once a hostage is taken, it is difficult for a president to ignore his or her fate. A better policy would deter the hostage takers by letting them know they will pay a price if they imprison Americans. But the Biden administration has done the opposite. The Biden-Harris administration, the complete opposite, and made it known, take our citizens unjustly, and we will do whatever we can and give you back terrorists, criminals.
Give us the list.
International assassins.
Right. You need money? What is it that you want? I mean, this is what it comes down to. Is that anyone saying at any top level here in the U.S., well, we don't make deals. Yeah, we do. From now on, we do. Yeah. And the Biden administration now has committed all future administrations in this regard.
As they write here, in the Wall Street Journal, whose reporter was taken.
Yep.
A better policy to deter the hostage takers by letting them know they will pay a price if they imprison Americans. The current global perception of U.S. weakness has bad consequences for press freedom and Americans abroad. After Evans' arrest, remember, that's their reporter, the Biden administration neither arrested any Russians nor even expelled any Russian journalist in the United States. We're not sure why. Right. We are.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we know. I think it's clear.
Something will have to change, or more Americans will be taken hostage after this prisoner swap. This will be true for Donald Trump as much as for Kamala Harris.
Yep.
Hostage takers will test any new president. None of this reduces our joy at Evans' release, but leaders have to think hard about how to prevent the innocent hostages of the future. This is the damn problem when you have the Biden-Harris administration that will not only never punish in any way our enemies, but in essence reward them, as we have done with Iran, by ensuring that they can fund their proxy terrorists that fight Israel, that attack Israel, and have attacked, well, I don't even know what the number is anymore. It was 150 U.S. U.S. infrastructure around the world. It was 150 attacks on bases and everything else.
Yeah.
And that was 3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
I haven't heard an updated figure on that.
Right. Well,
And this is what happens. This is what happens when the people of the United States are clueless or don't care about what's going on in the world.
there's two interesting pieces from the Wall Street Journal. Obviously, they were going to cover this, and because, number one, it's a huge story, but obviously with it being one of their reporters, there is their top story right now at their page, Inside the Secret Negotiations to Free Evan Gershkovich, and then what you were just reading from, and that's the editorial board and their take. And when you read the Inside the Secret Negotiations to Free Evan Gershkovich, which came out pretty early, it details. I mean, it's a long piece, but it's well worth the read if you have a Wall Street Journal subscription. I don't know if they've got the paywall on that one, on that story or not. I don't know. I assume they do, but very interesting to see how it plays out and how his mother has been working behind the scenes like any good mother would do. And you're not, there's absolutely no blame going to anyone for wanting him back here, but that's not the point. The point is, from now on, what leverage do we have against Putin, North Korea?
None.
Iran. Anyone. It can no longer be said. The Biden administration now has tied the hands of future administrations because there is no other game. And they know this. They're now motivated. Whoever wants to take a hostage for any reason, they're now motivated to do that. And they don't need, they've got all of the leverage. They have the upper hand in this from day one once they get a hostage taken. And every future administration is going to have to deal with it because they know that it's going to play out, whether it's a WNBA player or a Wall Street Journal reporter. It's going to play out. It's going to play out the way it always does in the media.
Or a U.S. soldier, who actually abandoned his post.
Exactly.
And then we remember that with Obama.
Yeah, right.
But Trump didn't do it, though.
No, he didn't.
So nobody's hands are tied if you don't want to be tied.
Well, I guess that remains to be seen. But here's
decisions made.
Here's what it changes. It changes the nature because they believe they're going to give it up. They believe whoever the hostage takers are, well, the U.S. will deal with it. They'll come in, they'll deal. They'll make a deal. They'll make a deal. Every time you do this, you give them more and more leverage.
The message
feel
you send,
and more empowered.
Well, the message you send is that if there's a Democrat administration, take our citizens. That's what the message it sends, because if Trump came in and they took one of our hostages and he retaliated with massive sanctions against Russia, that's a completely different ballgame. Mm-hmm. And so what the message it sends is Democrats. If Democrats are in power, it's okay for foreign nations. Look, it's okay for foreign nations to do whatever they want, because if Democrats are in power, you saw it with, Trump. Nope, sanctions on Iran because they take that on their oil, because they take that money and they give it to international terrorist groups that will attack the United States and will attack Israel. So we're not going to do it. As soon as the Biden administration comes in, they take those sanctions away. Billions of dollars goes to Iran in order to fund their proxies to attack the United States. That alone sets the message that, well, good God, they could care less. They could give a damn about taking any hostages. If we're willing to ensure that there's funding for Iran, hostages are minor compared to that.
And the question is, how many more?
Oh, it's going to continue. It just, it won't stop, because, again, if you always pay off the kidnappers, and they're never arrested because there's a difference. This isn't about paying off the kidnapper, setting it up, and then catching them and then punishing and getting the money back. This is like kidnapping a hostage, getting paid, and there's never any consequence for it.
Right. Exactly. And that's my point. They're going to feel empowered. And look, it will be different if there's a different administration with a different take on it, no doubt. But it doesn't mean they don't feel empowered to take those hostages. They're going to behave the same. In fact, that they feel more empowered after what the administration did yesterday or this week. Word was they called the family to the White House on Thursday. His mother, father, and I believe his sister. And there was a secret meeting. I guess they were telling them what was going on. The mother, again, had been involved. Again, you don't blame a family for wanting their loved one back. You don't blame anyone for wanting him back.
No.
But as long as we're going to deal, then expect there's going to be hostages taken all over the world for different reasons. It doesn't matter if it's Putin. It doesn't matter if it's Iran. And this week, I think, has been a real tell for the mindset of the outgoing president. With the deal made with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, here's the mastermind of 9/11, and you take the death penalty off the table. When they said they've made a plea deal, what deal? Tell me what KSM has in terms of intelligence that he could offer up all these years later. If it were the first month or two and he had intel to share, and there was some kind of arrangement made where you give up this intel, we give you consideration for it, I get that. Tell me how a plea deal works, except for the U.S. is just saying, we're not going to do the death penalty on you.
Hey, remember, he was also behind the decapitation, talking about a Wall Street Journal. Remember Daniel Pearl?
Right.
He was behind that.
Right.
He admitted he was behind that.
Right.
And there's plenty of evidence because they've got everything to do it, but it's like, and then you hear, you know something I was watching, not only that, but you and I have talked about, for example, the judges' nomination process. I was watching a bunch of stuff on YouTube yesterday about more judges. Nobody will answer a question.
Right.
Nobody,
Right.
and no Democrat in this administration, in the Biden-Harris administration, will answer any questions. And we see Kamala Harris won't even take any questions, but it's amazing. They will not answer a question directly ever. I mean, that's the one thing that I've never seen before to this extent, where no one will answer a question directly.
I was shocked that the back and forth between on Capitol Hill with the acting Secret Service director on drones the other day, that he answered that. I was shocked that he answered that question. I was thinking, wow, he's talking more than anybody has talked from this administration in a long time in that setting.
But even I was going through, I think it was, I forgot whether it was Ted Cruz or Cotton or Hawley, I wasn't sure, but they couldn't get him to answer, a question directly. It's like, we're not asking you that question.
Yeah, I think it was Cruz. Well, it could have been any of them, but it's, the one he answered from Cornyn, I'm like, why are you? And here's the thing, too. Director Ray. Well, there's some question about whether it was a bullet or not.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're willing to talk about that?
No, he knew that was a lie.
Of course it was.
It was a lie. He knew it.
Floating BS out there, trolling the way they do. This is the mind. This is why, and you brought this up. We brought it up multiple times. I think you brought it up yesterday a couple of times. Why it's so critical. This election is so critical. What's going on right now in deep state? If you look right now with the brass that's running all of these departments, there is a massive hole, and it's dangerous. It's not just going after your political opponent or parents who want to go to a parent-teachers meeting and issue a grievance. It's national security.
I've never seen an administration do almost everything wrong. Not some things wrong, but everything wrong.
And it's hard to convince me that it's not deliberate.
Yeah. It's not, one thing or two things or 50. It's everything.
Right.
They do wrong.
You look at all the evidence coming out. The new video the other day from Butler that shows movement on the top of the roof during the actual rally.
And you know what I expected when they responded? I expected them to say, that's one of our guys.
I was hoping they would say that and confirm it.
And it was like, we're really not going to comment. We're not really sure the investigation is good. It's like, oh, my God. Oh, geez.
Well, because and that's getting back to the deliberate thing. When people come up with a million conspiracy theories, sorry, they're just theories. I can't tell you what is what. I can't tell you what's true and what isn't. And it all feels deliberate.
At the minimum, the incompetence, this is at the minimum. At the minimum, the incompetence is so mind-boggling, the incompetence, the negligence, that it gives justification to any conspiracy theory that's out there. It's so
exactly.
bad that when someone says, it's so bad that when someone comes out and says, well, I believe that the Secret Service and Deep State are out to kill Trump. Mm-hmm. Well, you look at the negligence, the absolute incompetence, and you're like, I can't say that isn't true.
I can't tell you what is true and what isn't. It's unbelievable.
That's how bad it is. That's what the people of the United States want, though, because that's how they voted. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Keep your engine humming in the heat this summer by keeping up with preventive maintenance. Think your PM is complete after your oil is changed? Think again. There's grease, transmission fluids, and gear oil to consider too. Grease, for example, is made of oil, thickener, and additives. It provides rust protection by preventing water spray-off and wash-off on equipment like the universal joint, fifth wheel, and clutch throwout bearings. It also helps protect major greasing points like tie rod ends, spring pin bushings, kingpin, and the chassis. Today's synthetic oils means more miles between engine oil changes, but greasing intervals aren't growing at the same pace. Your fifth wheel, for example, needs to be greased every 15,000 miles or monthly.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up more on the just horrendous trade that happened. We're happy that Americans are back and innocent people are back. But even I think, was it 12 or 16 German citizens that were let go from Russia, every single one of them a political prisoner. Mm-hmm. There are no criminals on this side. There are no assassins on this side. There are no terrorists on this side. And this has been created by the Biden administration. We'll get into what some experts say about that Krasikov, you know who he is. But this is because of the weakness of the United States. Not only weakness of the United States in foreign policy, but the enabling of our enemies, the supporting of our enemies and worldwide terrorism that comes from this administration. And that's a problem. Also, don't worry, a bunch of people saying, aren't you guys going to talk about the boxing match? No, because we have never touched the radical transgender issues on this show. That's
Setting the standard for America. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen to us anytime you want. That's true.
And thank you.
That's cool. This from Fox News. The top of Russia President Vladimir Putin's list was hitman Vadim Krasikov, who used the cover name Vadim Sokolov and was convicted by a German court for the 2019 assassination of the former Chechen commander near Berlin's parliamentary building. Krasikov is a high-ranking colonel with an elite assassin unit of the FSB, which is the Federal Security Service, which is what came about after the KGB. They're basically the KGB of Russia. Said Rebecca, Koffler, former DIA intelligence officer and author of Putin's Playbook, told Fox News Digital in reference to the Russia intelligence agency. Krasikov is a very high-value asset who will be debriefed by the Russian security services on the operation, how he got apprehended, what he learned during the interrogations in Germany, and everything the Russians are interested in, she explained. These debriefings will help the Russians to make improvements in their operational tradecraft for Russian intelligence. Koffler also said it is likely the Putin operative will be used to train would-be assassins for future operations, making them even more lethal and difficult to detect and apprehend. Putin also wants to show to would-be recruits that he would personally get involved in getting his people out if they are caught, which is a huge recruitment incentive. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you can say the same about the deal made with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And it's if any of the enemies or would-be enemies believe they have the upper hand, it is a massive recruitment incentive. But also it is, this thought that, well, look, at the very least, I know the U.S. is going to respond. And, we talked about the other day, the political will that is built that the enemy looks at and says, my gosh, we've got people in the U.S. protesting in our favor. And that gives them, they feel empowered by that, the enemy does, thinking, well, we already have people in the U.S., U.S. citizens on the ground at protests, defacing property, burning American flags, putting up our flag in place of it. You tell me that's not building political will, that they already have a head start in the U.S., far from where we were years ago. And the enemy is always going to be empowered from now on in things like this.
You have a Biden-Harris administration that, as we know, and I need to say this again because it's very important, not just enabling, but actually actively participating to ensure that terrorists are well-funded in order to attack the United States and Israel.
Yep.
That's a fact. And it is just absolutely reprehensible. And that's why it's very important. And I give credit to the Wall Street Journal for coming out and saying, look, we're glad to have our guy back, but this policy sucks. Yeah. And our guy was taken because of the policy that there's no consequences in the Biden-Harris administration. None for our adversaries or enemies. They can do whatever they want. And as the Wall Street Journal mentioned, when their reporter was taken and other Americans are taken, there's no consequences. No. We don't kick their diplomats out. We don't do anything. We didn't kick their journalist out. Nothing happened. There's no price to pay if you kidnap, because that's what it is. If you kidnap American citizens and basically hold them for ransom, which is we want to get our spies and our assassins out and terrorists out, as we saw during the Obama administration, that if there's a Democrat in power, the United States is as weak and enabling and even assisting in our own possible destruction.
Think about what happened in 2016, Obama's final days, December 2016. After the election, Donald Trump had won the election. And the left was trying to make you believe that Russian interference and then ultimately Russian collusion with the Trump campaign was responsible for Donald Trump winning. That was really the only time that the Obama administration, if you want to call it getting tough, but issuing sanctions on Russia in, I think, what was it, December 29th, December 30th, 2016. Because, and if you think about it, they were pretty open about it. Well, for interfering with the election. So because it didn't go your way, they helped our opponent. It wasn't about protecting American lives. Go ahead. Take Crimea. You can do whatever you want if you're Putin. During the Biden years, go ahead, take Ukraine. We're not going to be tough with Putin. You're not going to deal with Putin in any way. Oh, wait a minute. We'll make any deal that you want in this regard. My question is, if we weren't so close to the election, would this deal have happened? If Biden hadn't dropped out of the election, would this deal have happened? Would the KSM deal have happened?
I don't know.
Is this Biden trying to set up his legacy? Forget you, Jack, I'll do what I want?
Well, again, I don't think people that would vote for Harris care about any of this. I don't believe I don't believe,
which wasn't my point.
Yeah, I don't believe Democrats care.
No, it wasn't my point. It's more of a kind of a thumbing their nose, Biden thumbing his nose.
Yeah, who knows?
His arrogance.
Who knows what's in his mind?
Well, I have no doubt that his arrogance is very much alive. You're not going to tell him what to do, especially now that he's not even running. This is the entire, everything right now, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're hearing the plea deal with KSM and also the deal made on the hostages in the same week. That's not a coincidence.
No, but all of it makes the United States look extremely, like I said, weak.
Yeah,
it makes
weak.
Beyond weak, and it is because this is when you take everything. When you take this, and I'm so glad you brought up the pro-terrorism part of the Democratic Party. With the anti-Semitism and with Israel and the pro-Hamas that only exists in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more mainstream each and every day. That not only you look at this here, and this sends the message to all of our enemies: you can take our citizens,
right?
And we're not going to give them back to you because we know there's no consequences to pay in the United States. We can break international law, and you're not going to do anything about it because you're a bunch of cowards in the United States. That's what they think when there's a Democrat administration.
Yep.
And not only that, by taking the hostages, but what Biden did in Afghanistan, pulling out in Afghanistan and betraying, as we know, all the Afghan people, the ones that were loyal to the United States, how he pulled out and lied to the American public. They know all of this. They look and they say the Biden administration is doing everything to weaken the United States, to get soldiers killed, to enable, not only, I don't want to use enable for this one, to assist Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, actually ensuring that they have funding to attack United States military bases, United States interests, and Israel. And then you have the Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. It's like, well, if he's not going to get the death penalty, who is?
Right.
All this, coming out in a matter of a couple of months shows how incredibly weak the Biden-Harris administration is and how they actually assist our enemies.
Yeah. Look at their actions, not their words.
Yeah.
Biden will tell you that we're an ally. He believes we're an ally of Israel, but that's not how he's acting. Iran has plenty of money to fund their proxies. And it will continue until somebody stops that flow of money, takes them out of the oil game like they were before. But if we don't do this now, and this is, there are so many critical turns here, November 5th. And we have to make a decision to make those turns. We either accept it the way it is. All right, we're okay with money going to Iran. They can fund Hezbollah, Hamas, all their proxies. We can do that. Or not.
Yeah, or not.
We can care about national security again.
Or not.
And I just, it just, honestly, every single day, these are not small decisions. This isn't the abstract of, hey, what would it be like if we, started a, national sales tax? Or what if we spent more on this? What if no, these are critical things that are in play right now. It is reality right now. We're on the train. The train is rolling. And we're coming up to the tracks that are going to make a Y, and we have to decide which way we're going.
Well, it is the number one responsibility of the executive branch, security for the United States, and they do the exact opposite.
Right.
Instead of attempting to protect the United States, they attempt to weaken us at every point and even help to fund our enemies in order to fund terrorist attacks against Israel and attacks on United States military bases. And what was it? Like I said, it was 3-4 months ago, 150 U.S. assets around the world. And that was, 3 or 4 months ago, that number was being thrown out.
Right.
And then everything that goes along with it. We look so damn weak to our enemies, but Democrats are all okay with it.
Right.
They're not upset. They're okay with it.
There's no outrage on the left, on the rank and file.
None. Absolutely none. You don't hear it.
Nope.
The only outrage, the only anger, the only ones making coherent arguments are the right on this, that we can't allow this to happen.
Right.
Democrats don't care, which is another question. Democrats, why don't you care?
Well, and it feels like one of those things where, so many of us were screaming about things like the Wuhan lab theory. Why can't you talk about it? And then years later, Democrats, oh, yeah, I guess we should talk about that. Well, on things like this, with Iran, with the border, with inflation, these are things that can't wait years and years and years.
The Democrats are looking at this as if this is an incredible success. What a great thing. We got all the people back. But they don't talk about what got us here.
Right.
It's like this is incredible celebration. They're out there. This is a political victory for us. We, the Democrats, are on all of these issues that we talk about, and we have more coming up, believe me, are absolutely insane. What executive branch works against the security interest of the United States and its citizens? Who does that?
The Joe Biden administration.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, the insanity continues at the Olympics. We'll get to this following the top of the hour. The woman boxer quits the Olympic boxing match after the opponent, who was previously disqualified by the IOC, I believe. Was it the IOC or was it the International Boxing Commission? But he's a guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just, as we know, in 40 seconds, apparently hit the woman in the face, broke her nose, according to the Daily Mail. They believe their nose was broken. And she said, I never took such a hard hit, and then screamed, it's unfair, and then quit after 46 seconds.
Yeah.
Understand, I mean, the brutality of this, a male fighting a female,
Right.
which is mind-boggling. And understand that in April of 23, every single member of every single Democrat in Congress voted for this.
Yep.
Voted for men playing against women, and Biden and Harris both support what happened yesterday.
Yep.
This is the insanity of the left.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi, welcome to a Friday. Isn't it amazing how quickly weeks pass? I can't.
Everything just runs together.
Yeah.
Especially with what we do, because we're doing show prep all day, we do the show all night, and it's like it just the cycle for us, the news cycle, the cycle of stories doesn't stop. It doesn't. There's not one period of the day where it's slower. Some days are slower, but right now, I don't remember the last slow day in the news cycle.
I had talking to a friend yesterday, and she said, "How was your show last night?" And I went, "I don't know." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I walked in, started talking, then I left."
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
I don't even know. It's just boom.
No, that I get that from the wife every day, and I ask her the same thing. How was work? Good. And I just throw out the good. I love my job, but it's the same thing. It's a blur. If you were to say, well, what happened? I don't know. There's a podcast. You can go listen. It's because it is that, and this is part of the reason I love it, is that it doesn't stop. And I wish we didn't have all these problems going on in this nation. I wish we could get back to talking about issues. But that's not reality, and you and I deal with the reality.
Yeah, it's now. I'm always in the moment.
Yeah,
but it's just when you're done with it, it's just like driving home. It's like, what happened?
Yeah, right.
And then it's right back to it again.
Right.
Think about the driving home, because I have the 27-mile drive home. Is the only time I'm not inundated by news.
Right.
And then as soon as I get home, and it's like, put the phone down, grab something to eat, grab the phone, start looking again, go to sleep,
Boom.
Wake up, the phone, and that's the beauty of smartphones. You never stop. I'll wake up and lay in bed for an hour and a half just reading. And everything's on the phone. The phone's right
I've
there.
got so many push notifications, and yeah.
And it's like, well, and the first thing I wake up, it's like, well, I can get up and get some coffee. Well, let me just check the news. I'm laying in bed. It's like, boom, and then get up, do a few things back out. And so it's just a continuing cycle. And just so people know, you're like, well, isn't that your job? When you go back, when you've been in as long as I did, you used to actually have show prep segments in your day, because I would get.
Yeah.
I remember, if I worked in a major city, I would get, and back then even, a lot of them had two newspapers, so you get the two local newspapers. I'd always get the Wall Street Journal back then, get USA Today, and then that's four. There was probably a fifth. I'm trying to think who that would have been. Probably take a look at the New York Times.
Yeah.
You'd want to see how the left is covering things, and probably the Washington Post. So it's like 6, but you got them at a period of time and said, okay, I need to go through it now. And I remember going on the air, and 90% of your stories, because the only thing you had was a teletype going, and if a new story came across, there wasn't a lot of information on it.
Right.
And so everything that you were talking about on the radio was really, 18 to 24 hours old.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case. I go to sleep. I don't know. Yesterday I went to sleep, I think probably about 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. No, about 5:30. I woke up at 10 o'clock, and you're like, I've been asleep for like Rip Van Winkle. It seems like, everything will change. It didn't yesterday, but there are those days where you have to prepare that things change hourly. I will think in my mind, okay, got the entire show done, and wake up at 10 o'clock and go, jeez.
Well, yeah.
Throw it all out.
Yeah.
We got to start new because everything now is much more, as close to real time as you can get.
Right.
And so that's,
and
I love
really
it,
is.
but I love it, but at times it's a blur.
Well, there is no weekday, weekend. It's one big long day.
No, this is the worst day because I'll go home and still go through the whole process. Doing the exact same show prep. And so, and then there I am, and I'm bookmarking a ton of stories from today.
That will change drastically.
Oh my God! By the time you get to Monday, it's like Friday.
Oh, I go back through my bookmarks from a Friday when I, on Sunday morning, starting the basically the Sunday night, Monday morning show prep cycle, and I'll go back to Friday shows, all of my bookmarks from Friday and go, look at that naive Eric from last Friday.
I know,
from not even 48 hours ago. It's like, he was so young and naive, thought that would still be a story by Sunday?
Yeah, I know.
What are you doing?
But it's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful to be immersed in it. And I know, yes, I understand that we're doing all this extra work, but like compared to what we used to do, because you're always doing it. You're always sifting through so many different stories than you were before. And so, yes, we are putting in a lot more time at home.
Yeah.
At home. We have to work here and at home.
Yeah.
This is hybrid, but it's hybrid 100-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Please, Eric and I are victims. Please sympathize with us. We're victims of the corporate media culture.
Right.
Okay, no, we're actually
it's what society has forced us into.
We're actually the oppressors now. We're not the victims. We've turned into the oppressors.
Yeah.
We thrive on it.
Yeah.
But yesterday, Olympics, boxing.
Wow.
The political part of it, 99% of Democrats in Congress are for what happened yesterday, including the presumptive nominee for Democrat president of the United States, a woman, I believe. Does she address herself as she, her? I don't know.
Yeah, those are her pronouns, at least on her social media page.
Okay, I didn't know.
Assuming she is in control of her social media page. I don't know if she does any of that. But according to
are you
that
implying
page,
are you implying that it's a man because since she believes that men should be competing against women in sports, and because she has never come out and stated that the bullying and the threats towards women athletes, she's never come out and sympathized with them whatsoever, that she is part of the self-misogyny that exists, and therefore a man is telling her what to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's on board with it. That's the whole part of the agenda.
I will tell you, though, that just blew up social media like nothing ever has.
Was frustrating and sad. It was, I mean, it was unreal when you just looking at the look on Karini's face, the biological female who had to end the match because she was in great pain being pummeled by a man.
And she said she's never been hit that hard.
This is
About you know what I did? I just looked at I looked at their arms from the elbow to the shoulder. Did you see the difference?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh.
Yeah. No, it was unbelievable. There are a couple of pictures, by the way, still shots that don't do it justice at all. You got to go back and watch the video.
I have.
It's just unbelievably frustrating. And the left has pushed this and is still pushing this. And here in the States, they want this to be. This is now Title IX until we stop it.
Well, the interesting thing was, the ironic thing was, as this was going on, the promotion of the left that they have changed the rules on Title IX, where a man can be a woman if the man says so, and men can compete against women in sports across the United States, except in all the states that have sued for this.
Yep.
Because as we all know, Congress did not vote to change at this point Title IX. This was, again, the authoritarian Biden administration that decided, because we all know, every Democrat listening right now knows that Title IX was about biological women.
Right.
And they've completely changed that and said now it's not about biological women. You can include men. I mean, it's just pure. It's one of the most of. Think about this. In order to deny, and this is why, and Riley Gaines came out yesterday and said, some people say they're voting for Kamala because she's a woman. He goes, she said, I'm voting for Trump because I am a woman. You know, you look at Kamala Harris, you look at, we've talked about the feminist movement. And we had said this probably 6-7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. We had said that the feminist movement will be destroyed because of this. And it's exactly what happened. The feminist movement got just wiped out. And they, as we have said, the so-called feminist, all we care about women, capitulated to the man.
Yeah.
They sat there and said, doggone it, we're feminists. And feminism now means we submit to the will of the male.
Yeah.
That's where Democrats have gone.
Yep.
And understand that the equity bill, remember that they tried to pass, but they couldn't pass? And remember, who was the woman who was on the one panel and she was against the, was it in D.C., where she was against, she's a lesbian, but she was against what was going on and on the left, she was against men going to women's prison.
Right.
And she was kicked off the board because of it.
Right.
Because she was against men being in women's prison where it'd be easier for types of sexual assaults to happen, which has happened. And they said, no, you're gone because you're a bigot. You don't hear that much anymore because you can't. This is indefensible what's going on. And if you looked at social media yesterday, I mean, it was 99.999% of people across the board saying this is insanity. Understand this has mainstream approval. For the equity bill, you had 99% of Democrats that voted on it vote for men competing against women in sports, going into women's private areas, and then in April of 23, when the Republicans put out a bill, when they had the House at that point, they put out a bill that would say, no, Title IX is about women being able to play their own sports and men will stay out of it. 100% of Democrats, including every Democrat so-called feminist woman that claims they care about women, voted against protecting women. Every single Democrat, 100%. Now, you talk about not just weird, but harmful. That's where it is right there.
Yep.
And it was just yesterday was the day that we knew was going to happen, where it just got to be so brutal in the Olympics that the video is so crystal clear what happened, where finally the nation went, oh, duh, well, maybe this is the wrong thing to do.
Well, we talked about it for years. We put up the scenario, well, what happens in a boxing ring? What happens in, any of it? Well, because when they're hitting each other, that's when we're really going to see the backlash. What Riley Gaines has done, by the way, in her sport is unbelievable. But when you see it, when you watch this video that hit yesterday, it's so frustrating.
Well, the brutality of it, she came out and she goes, this is assault of women.
Yeah.
And she goes, how far is this from domestic violence?
Right. How is this okay?
Yeah. How is this okay with 100% of Democrats?
Right. No, again, if they have their way, this will be a regular thing under their Title IX.
Yeah. It's what they want.
Yep.
And not only, again, remember, not only is this the height of misogyny that exists, 100% of Democrats, including 100% of women Democrats in Congress, approve of misogyny, of intimidating and bullying and threatening women when they complain about it. 100% of members of Congress. And then Schumer wouldn't let it get to the Senate. And then Biden said, I will veto it. Biden, Harris, the entire Democratic Party, 100% as of April of 2023, want male boxers to kick the crap out of women.
Yep.
That's what it's about. That's where Democrats stand.
Yep.
And that J.D. Vance is weird, isn't it?
Right. Exactly. He's the weird one.
And there has been no Democrat outcry from the voter at all. None.
No. You're not seeing Democrats. It wasn't Democrats that were outraged yesterday.
No. None. I didn't see one Democrat in Congress that was outraged yesterday at all. None. They are for men kicking the crap out of women in sports.
Yep. Men dominating women's sports.
And so we always put out a special invitation to Democrats to communicate us with in any way. You don't have to call us, but justify this in some way.
Right.
Why do you say nothing about it? Why is it? And if you're against it, why aren't you vocal about the insanity of all this that just didn't happen yesterday? This is 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators can save a hefty amount of money by participating in discount fuel networks. If you're leased and your fleet has a fuel optimizer program, use it. Such a program helps plan a trip based on fuel prices and locations in the carrier's fuel network. The larger the carrier, typically the larger the discounts that are possible. Fees for using such networks have become rare thanks to competition for drivers. Owner-operators are well advised, however, to pass up network fuel stops that are too costly, are too far off route, sell inferior fuel, or are dangerously or poorly maintained. For independent owner-operators, a bevy of fuel discount networks exists, from a variety of traditional fuel cards to the National Association of Small Trucking Companies network and the younger mudflap applications discounts at independent truck stops around the nation. Research the options and discounts available to find the right one for you. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here's Riley Gaines last night on Fox News.
And that's a real shame. Crickets. All right.
Crickets from Kamala, crickets from the women at The View. And if I could implore you, a vote for Kamala is a vote against your daughter's future. I see lots of people on social media saying they will be voting for Kamala because she is a woman. Well, let me tell you, Jesse, I will be voting for Trump because I am a woman.
All right.
You know, one of the things that we have said before, if Democrats are 100% behind this, I mean, and again, it defies science, it defies logic in every single way. You lie to people.
Yep.
It's the government line that a man can be a woman if the man says so.
Yep.
And, you know, this whole thing, remember when they used to say, and we'll go through this following the bottom of the hour, that, well, gender and sex are different. Not now.
No.
Because you're advocating men play against women.
Yep.
And it's pure insanity. Everybody knows it is, but understand 100% of the Democratic Party is behind this.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, what we saw in the Olympic boxing yesterday, as reprehensible as it was, this is something that you and I have been talking about for the longest time. We've been talking about it so long where there was one point where we said, why aren't women upset about this?
Right.
We said, what are two guys? Because we were on this a long time ago. In fact, one of the things that you always said is, you know, Title IX and other civil rights legislation is to protect minorities. But if anybody can be whatever they wish because they said so, then there is no protection for those minorities.
Those
and
classes, right.
Yeah, and understand this. I mean, this has been going on for a while because this started, Obama is the one that kicked this all off. And you and I both remember how radical it got to Obama, and people didn't realize it, but we saw it. It was in December of 2016, right?
Mm.
When Obama came out. One of his last interviews with, I believe it was The Atlantic.
Yeah.
And they asked him, they said, well, you know, you always say you're black. This is a question they asked. What about the white part of you? And he said, you know, why do you say you're black? And he said, well, I've come to understand that race is a social construct.
Yeah.
Which means race also, you can be whatever race you wish to be. And so, I mean, this is the insanity that comes out from the left. And understand, this was started by Obama. When people said, well, no, Obama wasn't radical, Obama was a moderate. No, he's the one that started all of this with Title IX. It was his administration that did it. And for the life of me, I have no idea why liberal women go along with this. I have no idea. I cannot tell you that liberal feminists fought for years saying, this is our right, this is our right, this is our right. And they were so concerned about things like sexual harassment, sexual assault, their having their private spaces, being able to be women, being able to compete against women, which is why Title IX came out. And now you've got every single Democrat, 100% of Democrats agree that men should invade women's private spaces. God, do you remember the outcry when women went into men's locker rooms in the NFL?
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like, no, men can go wherever they want. And you and I have talked about this so long. And I'll never forget the day we looked at each other and we said it on the air. We said, women are eventually going to have to say something about this. We know they're being bullied. We know they're being intimidated. We know they're being threatened. And until Riley Gaines came out just a couple of years ago, this went on for years because as we call it, the blue wall of intimidation, that you're transphobic, you're shut up.
Well,
you're an idiot.
And we're still seeing, the radical left goes after her.
Oh,
You see
yeah.
it all the time. They go after her. She's been a target. And the message is very clear. You do anything, show any dissent at all, and we come after you. We'll come after your livelihood. We'll get you canceled. Doesn't matter. You mentioned the one person that was on the advisory board. She was a lesbian, and she was on that advisory board for the prisons. She was in that role representing LGBTQ.
Yeah.
And said, yeah, but we can't let a male go to female prison because inevitably this is what's going to happen. And by the way, it did, but she was kicked off the advisory board. How dare you go against the agenda?
Well, and if you see some of the tactics that the left used, and I saw it just in an article today, Republicans that promote the anti-LGBTQ agenda, and this is where the LGBTQ, and we had warned the gay community years ago, you need to get out with partnering yourself with the radical transgender movement.
Mm-hmm.
And throwing the T in there, we know, you saw, was it Jillian Michaels come out the other day about what's happening about the opening. She's also been very active about, men playing women's sports. And she's just like, what's wrong with the gay community? Why, this is insanity. This isn't a part of who we are.
Right.
And so, we saw Martina Navratilova go from a hero for standing up especially in the 80s, when she came out, of what a trailblazer she is, to now being an oppressor.
Yep. Because that's the way it works on the left.
Right. She went from victim, heroes of the victim, to an oppressor like that.
Yep.
And when you look at it, the outcry yesterday was finally a guy beating the crap out of a woman in the Olympics that got so much publicity you couldn't ignore it, and it was so brutal to watch. And it seems like part of America woke up going, what's going on here? And it's been going on for years.
Yep.
And you've ignored it, or you approve of it. And right now, today, the ironic thing is that Title IX went into effect, or the new rules for Title IX, which is 180 degrees opposite. Congress didn't change it. The authoritarian, can we use the F word? Fascist, because that's what comes. Democrats would, claim if this happened on the other side, it would be fascist. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yep.
Because this didn't go through Congress, decides we're just going to change the rules, and sex is no longer sex. Congress didn't approve it. They did. And that's part of the authoritarian state that you and I are against. We live in a system where the Constitution, is what we want to abide by and what we want to follow. And the fact that Democrats, think about this, Democrats said, no, let's use the authoritarian power of the executive branch to change a law that Congress passed to show how incredibly misogynist we are against women. The Democratic Party now hates Jews, hates women, hates Israel. It's mind-boggling where they have gone. And the 100% of Democrats are for men beating the crap out of women.
And Trump is a dictator, and J.D. Vance is weird.
Yes, exactly.
Because, you bring it up the way that they, earlier mentioning the joint edict between the Department of Education and Department of Justice under Obama.
Yeah.
And we remember that because one of the school districts in our area here in North Texas was dealing with what they're going to do with the bathrooms and transgenders in the schools. And they had come to the conclusion that school district said, okay, we'll make sure that everybody is happy, nobody feels unsafe. And so they made arrangements. It wasn't 2 or 3 days later. Boom. Joint edict comes down. And in it, This is our interpretation of Title IX. Because we say so. You don't get a say. Your representatives are not part of it. And then later, when they finally were, 100% of the Democrats are on board with it. They're okay with it. If they ruled the House and the Senate and the White House, it would become the law of the land. That's where they are. And if they win in November, if they were to take back the House, win enough seats in the Senate, and get the White House, this becomes law.
Yeah. And it's the thing is their hatred towards women, the misogyny that exists in here, which was no one was upset when all these college athletes, these women college athletes came out and said, we're being intimidated, we're being threatened, all of this. Not one single woman, Democratic woman, came out to defend them, unless you want to call is Tulsi Gabbard still officially a Democrat, or has she renounced them? I don't know. But she wasn't she wasn't in Congress at that point.
Right.
And, but 100% of the Democrats and 100% of women Democrats in Congress voted in a misogynist way to show, and I call it it's got to be self-misogyny. Do liberal women, I have to ask this question, do they hate themselves?
Are they true misogynists, you mean? Self-misogynists?
Are they self-misogynists? When you see how quickly, you and I always did for the last few years, that, the feminists just crumbled because the man said so.
Yep.
And the man is the one who dictates to women now what the definition of their sex is. That's how insanity it is. There has to be some type of self-hatred to be so angry to sit there and claim that you want freedom, but then practice such incredible self-misogyny, self-women hatred by allowing what has gone on to go on. And you have to ask the question, why do they hate themselves so much? Seriously, because, Eric, it doesn't make any type of sense at all.
No.
Nobody can figure this out, and it's not, well, we can say that, not the entire Democratic Party hates Jews, only a part of it does. Well, when it comes to women, 100% of Democrats hate women, including the women.
Yeah. And the big moves on this have come from the men. It's about allowing men in women's sports.
I know.
And the men are making the call on it.
Yep.
Obama,
Yep.
Biden.
Yep.
And the liberal women will pick it up. Kamala Harris is taking the torch and is going to carry it.
Oh, she's 100% behind it.
She still has a job.
Unless she changes her mind now because the politics behind it is so devastating.
It's interesting because, you mentioned the IOC cleared this man to be in the ring with women. And then after the match yesterday, they doubled down on it. Nope.
Yep.
Still going to go on. His next opponent is from Hungary, and she says, "Well, I'm not afraid to get in the ring with the guy. I'm going to do it." It's still going to continue. Unreal.
Yeah, it's just, and you and I've always said, if the Democratic Party stands 100% behind this insanity, then you have to question anything else that they believe in, and you can. The border. Oh yeah. It's secure.
Right.
And if it isn't secure, open borders is good. Defunding the police. Pure insanity.
Inflation. Remember, at one point they were fighting their position was on inflation. They were fighting back with inflation is transitory.
Right. Well, and inflation is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, it's You look across the board on everything, the major issues and where they believe, it's complete insanity.
Right.
It's not weird. It's insane.
And they want you to believe Kamala Harris is stronger on the border than Donald Trump.
Oh, there was an article written on that one going, I mean, that's...
Yeah.
That's,
and J.D. Vance is weird.
That's gaslighting that we've never seen before. I think it was a National Review. We'll get to that and more. Plus, your calls, too, if you want to get in. We do have a line open, 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls, 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Coming up, we'll continue the discussion on everything, including I found the article, Kamala's sociopathic dishonesty on the border, and it was about the commercial she put up that we played the other day on the air. We played it a few times on the air, where she's trying to make the case that she would be tougher on the border than Donald Trump has been.
Right.
And it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. They're actually trying to sell that. They're spending millions of dollars trying to convey that message. They want you to believe that message. They think they can convince people of that. Wow.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just love this here. We'll get to this later on. When nobody believes in anything. Another National Review article. I was just looking at that going, wow. But what an insane day.
Yeah.
It was yesterday.
It is the insanity that really does have you asking, what are the convictions of people? What do people believe in?
You know, we've talked about how Democrats, and I'm talking about the rank and file. I'm not talking about the influencers that you see, for example, on social media. Mm-hmm. But we had the discussion last week, myself and in our little group text with my buddies, and we talked about how all the Democrats that we know on social media completely quiet. They don't give their opinion on anything anymore.
Yeah, right.
And we know they're passionate. Oh, I finally got somebody to disagree. It was a liberal who wrote me yesterday, but everything was a Democrat talking point. And I just said, well, I really can't debate you because you're not giving any specifics.
Right.
You're just throwing out generalities at me. And I said, apparently you're a new listener to the show because we don't argue that way. We don't debate that way.
Right.
And so I said, there's not much I can say to you because even when they disagree, it's just generalizations. And you have to get to the heart of the matter and go point by point by point. And Democrats don't seem to want to do that.
Right.
But on the, radical transgender movement, the insanity is if, it's like we looked yesterday at the things that Trump believes in. For example, Trump and the Republican Party, where on 20 issues where the Republicans stand, 60% more approval 60% or more approval, and 14 of them, 80% approval or more.
Yeah.
Where they stand.
Right.
This has got to be the ones, if you frame it right, on the radical transgender movement, that has to be 70% or over. And yet 100% of the Democrats are against it.
We couldn't figure that out when when the vote came down. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Where is the pushback? At home, from the rank and file. How is it that it's 100%? There is no way you can convince me that they have 100% support, except for the fact that they get away with it.
Well, they had 100% support in Congress. You're talking about the voter.
Well, that's what I mean.
Right.
That in Congress, they have to have the support from the voter. And if they get away with it and they vote that way, their constituents are okay with it. If the political pressure were there, they wouldn't do it.
Let's go to Ken in Pennsylvania here because he has a point to make that I want to hit. Ken, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. I appreciate your show. I like it a lot. I think I understand the situation. In most of these cases, if you look at the Democrats as seeking power, all of these choices make some sense. They used to believe in freedom of speech when it was to their benefit, to expand their support. Now they believe in suppression when it, again, benefits them by turning folks against the right. So these issues, they were for women when being for women was beneficial to them. Now they push them aside when they think they can target another group to bring into their power base. And so I think that the whole issue is one of consistency, but the consistency is for power. They don't believe in issues. They use issues as tools.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree. I agree that some they're politicians, so all politicians do that. But I do believe that a significant portion do believe in the issues that they're promoting.
Well, I think that the guy you quoted the other day, I think it was the former CEO from PayPal, who said that when he went to Washington, he realized that they didn't believe in issues and that the Republicans did, and that the Democrats were more interested in power than in his issues.
Oh, right. I'm not saying it's not about power, but I'm saying you can have both. You can sit there and say, we're doing this for power, and there are other people in your party that absolutely believe what they're selling. There are Democrats that absolutely believe that a man can be a woman if the man says so.
Well, it's how you build the political will, because for those that aren't driven by the need for the power, you need to get them in some way, and you're going to have to do that by convincing them that, again, make them believe in it wholeheartedly. It's how that political will is there. You basically have both in play.
You look at the politicians in power, of course, they'll use it to gain power. Go to colleges. They actually believe it. They've been brainwashed to believe these things. And
I totally agree that the power structure has convinced a lot of people of that. But the explanation for the craziness of switching, I think, is explained by the issue of pursuit of power,
right?
And how they see issues as tools,
right? But eventually, as we see right now, reality, as we have said, is actually a bigger enemy to the Democrats and the liberals than Republicans, because you've hit the wall of reality on so many different things. But when you look at it, where the Democrats stand on the issue, a very small minority of people agree with them. They may vote personality, but they're not voting for the issues.
Yeah, right.
I totally agree with that. And the problem really is that the grassroots of the Democrat Party aren't following what they believe when they disagree with them. They aren't leaving the party, and so the party is still maintaining enough of these other people, even though they have made these crazy turns.
Yeah. And part of it, too, is, and thank you for your thoughts, Ken. We appreciate the call.
Yep.
A lot of it, too, is in the drive for the power, you ultimately also want to control the language. Once you can control the language, when you make certain language offensive, and this is what you do, you build all of, more and more victims. And why is that? Well, because you need more and more things to be offensive. Why is that? Well, you need more and more things to, well, first of all, you need to be able to pretend like you're fighting for those victims. And the more you have, then the more your power will, basically be in play. Now, it fails them drastically, but the part of that reach is also in order to gain control of the language. If we can gain control of how people speak, once we can control the language, then we can control everything. You start outlawing certain language, and we're on our way. It will only be a matter of time. Offensive language should be outlawed. Actually, it's the reason we have the First Amendment. It's about being able to say things people disagree with. It's not about anything else. It's not just about speaking your opinion. It's about being able to speak your opinion and it being okay, even if everybody else disagrees with you.
And so to the last caller, I agree with you. In politics, it is about power. But I think, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I would think that from what I can see, at least half to a majority of Democrats don't believe in the First Amendment to the Constitution.
Right.
They don't believe in freedom of speech. It's not, and you're like, yeah, well, it's just to get power. Well, except it's going to work against them when the opposition gets in power, so they're not thinking. But they don't believe in the First Amendment. They don't believe in freedom of speech for the opposition, and they truly believe that. Mm-hmm. Now, everything is to gain power, and they figure, okay, if we can get rid of the First Amendment, we can get more power, and we can stay in power if we can shut the other side up. The vast majority of Democrats, either half or a majority of Democrats believe that the government should censor opinions they don't like. Right. Not all Democrats. That's why you had I think they were terrified, and we've talked about this before, the Barry Weisses, the Michael Schellenbergers, the Matt Taibbis, Democrats who were part of the Twitter files that couldn't believe what was going on. But Democrats are okay with government censoring the media. They're okay with it. If you see the polling, if what happened in the Democratic Party, anointing Kamala Harris, happened to a candidate in the Republican Party, the Republican Party would be destroyed.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
It'd be absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
Was it less than 30% of people were upset? Oh, we wish there would have been more, but only 30. It was like 30% in the one poll, or less than 30%.
Yeah.
So democracy wasn't followed. They scream democracy, but they don't care about democracy. They just, they say it, but they really don't care about it. So you can find it across the board. You can find people that use the issues just for power. You can find in Democrats people that actually believe the insanity that is going on. But in politics, everything is for power. Mm-hmm. But it isn't all the time. To say, as Trump did and J.D. Vance in the interview and at the convention, we as government are not going to censor even the other side. You may say, well, they're looking for power because they believe their side believes in freedom of speech. Well, then that's good power.
Right.
That's good use of political power. But, yeah, I mean, the Democrats are all over the place, but they have a very compliant rank and file, the voter, that's absolutely quiet right now.
Yeah.
They don't speak, which means they disagree with what's going on, but they don't have the guts to fight back. They're gutless. They're gutless, for example, on the radical transgender movement. They're absolutely wimpy, scared male dudes for Harris.
Yeah.
And you saw it. If you want to know,
white dudes for Harris.
Male white dudes for Harris. So if you want to know what the liberal male is like, just watch what they put on the other day.
Right.
I'm Sean Astin. Rudy's a wimp because, they don't like Kamala. And she dances and she sings and she laughs. They are gutless wimps that when their party promotes an authoritarian type of narrative not seen in this country. You look at the lawfare, you look at everything else that has gone on. They're wimps. They know what's wrong. Now you had people with guts. You had Barry Weiss. You had Michael Schellenberger. You had Matt Taibbi. You had Alan Dershowitz. You have Jonathan Turley. All loyal Democrats that said this is insanity.
Yeah.
But the rest of you Democrats, you're gutless wimps. You know what's going on is wrong. In the Republican Party, you have had vibrant debate to the point of having never Trumpers.
Mm-hmm.
There's vibrant debate inside the Republican Party on a variety of issues. Over the last day about how Trump should handle the issue of race. That's gone back and forth, the arguing on social media, the number of great, by the way, great debates. Thanks for the people that have, that contacted me, that we had some great stuff yesterday going on email. I appreciate it. But there's vibrant debate going on as to the tactics to use. The Democratic voter are a bunch of gutless wimps when it comes to what they know is absolutely wrong with their party.
You're okay with getting in line because they tell you to.
Yep. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yep.
The Kevin Bacon syndrome is what the Democratic voter is about right now.
And
gutless cowards.
You're okay with it.
And wimps. Like I said, the white males showed you just how wimpy and how gutless the men are. And the women, the white women, where are the white women? The white women for Harris, they let you see bluntly their absolute racism towards minorities.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute racism.
We've been anointed by people of color to come here and save the election.
And that's why the buzz on those two things died so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
But that's where the Democratic voter is today. They're gutless wimps.
Yep.
They know this crap being thrown out. They know because they're answering the polls.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that wide disparity of who they'd vote for based on their passion for the issues. But the issues don't matter. We got to get in line. We must be told what to do.
Yep.
We have a line open if you'd like to get in, 866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And I think the epitome of the gutless cowards of the Democratic voters is exactly what we saw yesterday in the boxing match. When you look at that you didn't see any outrage at all. It's just they're quiet on it. They're, I don't. And like I said, what are you afraid of? Well, they're afraid and bullied. Of what?
Of what?
I live in the United States of America. I've given my opinion my whole life and done it publicly. To what consequences? Negative consequences? None.
How in the world? Because
None.
if you don't, if you, in fact, keep putting people in power that are pushing for more of this, then you're promoting it. You want this.
And I say no consequences because people say, yeah, but you're attacked by the left. That's not a consequence. That's not a bad consequence. I look forward to that because anytime they wish to debate, they're clueless. But there are no bad consequences. You may have to take some insults if you view that as a bad consequence, but otherwise, you're a shell of a human being, not participating and not giving your opinion about the insanity of what's going on, and every American should do that. Every American, I believe, and, under the First Amendment should fight for what they believe in because there are people that fought and died so that things like freedom of speech are protected. And I'm outraged by the number of Democrats. Well, okay, I'm not outraged. I'm shocked times over the last 30 years. I'm not anymore. How Democrats have abandoned basic, tenets of the Constitution that used to be taken for granted. But you're in a time right now where things are so incredibly, let's go to the Declaration, things are incredibly self-evident, and Democrats are cowards to address it. And I'm talking about the Democratic voter, not the politicians. But I think it's important to understand the insanity of the radical transgender movement to allow men into women's private spaces naked, to allow men to fight women, has 100% support of the Democrats in Congress and the Vice President Harris, the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party, and Joe Biden.
Yep. It's, again, if you're voting for this, if you're supporting her, and you supported Biden, you supported Obama, then you want this.
You support misogyny.
Yep.
And the worst kind of misogyny.
And again,
not that there's a good kind.
Right. If anyone can belong to a protected class by saying so, then there are no protected classes, and your protection is gone. You're fighting to end Title IX as we know it.
Get our Red Eye Radio app in your app store. Then listen at your convenience. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen to the show after the show is done. It becomes our podcast.
And thank you.
And thanks to all our day listeners out there.
Mm-hmm.
In the future, we're talking to you from the past.
Yes. Only you can see the future.
Yes. Let's go to Kay in Jacksonville, Florida. Kay, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi, Kay. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. This is in reference to what you were saying earlier about how could a government possibly be doing everything wrong on accident. They're not. I think it is also on purpose. And I feel like what we should be doing is just like
I did not say by accident.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Yeah, I did not say by accident. Yeah, everything's calculated. Yeah, there's a purpose.
Yeah, I believe I agree. Okay. Exactly. I think what we should be doing is just like them. People have short attention spans. We should just be hammering down event by event from the beginning to just plot out the nefariousness from the pipeline to the borders to the drug incoming and all of it, all the things that they're doing, just one by one in every station you turn to, every Republican you talk to, hammer it down. There's no way that all of this was done for the good of our country. And I think that's what will really help it stick with people.
Well, what you're talking about is you sell any message through repetition. And Eric and I have talked about this before since we've done it for such a long time. And thank you for your call.
Thanks.
Decades upon decades upon decades upon decades.
Yep.
At times you think to yourself, well, I'm getting bored. I'm repeating myself all the time. And then you realize, well, the reason I'm repeating myself is I'm responding to the same arguments. I've always looked and when I was in talk radio, and the vast majority of when I first got in the first 20 years and 25 years really was local talk. And I kept saying, people say, well, how do you do it? And I said, well, after you get used to doing talk radio, there are basically, let's throw out there 200 issues. And so whatever city you go to, the city is the same. You simply insert another politician's name and maybe the monetary, what's it going to cost, the taxpayer. but the template's the same because human problems are really the same.
Yeah.
And so when you look at this, we've been talking about the radical transgender movement probably consistently for about 8, 9, 10 years. We were ahead of it. We were talking about the problem coming down the pike a long, long time ago on this and what it was going to lead to. And we did say it will kill liberal feminism. And thank you for the people that remember that. They're longtime listeners of the show and said, you guys said that. And I was listening the day that Gloria Steinem said, oh, we support the transgender movement completely. And we said, well, there's the complete white flag from the liberal feminist that we will no longer support feminism because the man says so.
Yeah.
And so, but when you look at all the different, when you look at the topics right now, there's probably about 10 huge topics that are talked about in each and every week. There may be new ones that come up, but the radical transgender movement is something that has been talked about. Critical race theory, for example, the border, inflation, foreign policy, anti-Semitism, pro-terrorism. You know, they can put that all into one, under one umbrella. So there's about 10 topics that we're really talking about. Well, the Democrats are making the same false arguments, so we got to make the same truthful arguments back.
Yeah. Yep. Look, it's one of the things that we do on this program and have since the beginning is we break it down into, all right, what's the next logical thing? Back in the day, we'd get the call, you guys in your slippery slope. Yeah, there's no slope. It starts and ends immediately. There is no slope. Well, years from now. Now, we knew several years ago when the first case out of California came out, and it was about a little girl who told her parents that a man came in the bathroom. And everyone on the left at that point was saying, that little girl is a bigot.
Yep.
She has hatred in her heart for feeling fear. And then it was, followed by the editorial board at the Charlotte Observer, and they said, basically made the point that your daughter needs to get used to male genitalia. Keep in mind, J.D. Vance is the weird one. Did you watch the opening ceremonies or even see some of the video of it on social media of the Olympics? J.D. Vance is the weird one. Are you paying attention? Did you watch any of the footage yesterday of a woman being pummeled by a man, and the left celebrates that? J.D. Vance is the weird one. When you look at everything that they're promoting, you look at the bizarre nature of how they support the terrorists.
Yeah.
Union Station, and they burn the American flag and put up the flag that represents the enemy. J.D. Vance is the weird one. At every turn, the radical nature of the left is on full display because they're proud of it. And if you vote for it, you're a radical, you're part of it, you're responsible as well. You can stop it, you can change it, you can vote differently, you can speak out against it, or you can be a coward. I was so outraged yesterday. I literally couldn't sit down after watching it. I was livid at that video. And the look on his face as he's walking around his opponent, and she's clearly suffering a defeat in two major ways. All of the work and discipline it takes to get to that level, all of the years that she put in, over. Because the IOC says it's okay that a man can come in and dominate in a way that is extremely dangerous. Because we're going to, not only are we going to allow it, we're going to celebrate it. It's going to be part of our opening theme. Forget about the flags of the nations. We have a rainbow flag. We're going to be carrying it every day, all day. And women, don't you say a damn thing about it.
Because we'll do everything to ruin your life if you do.
We'll come at you hard.
Yep.
It's time to end all of this. We can make a choice. And if you believe that Kamala Harris isn't a radical, you're not paying attention. She's part of this. This is in part why the left, those in power, the Democrats at the top of the party, they're promoting her because they know this is what they've been saying. They've been saying things like this when they lose an election. It's because we're not radical enough. The permanent governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, identity politics is working for us. Everything, all of these radical tactics, they believe in them wholeheartedly. And if you're not getting it, you're stupid or you're the enemy. And just asking a question about it makes you the political enemy.
And we've talked a lot. Because of the boxing insanity yesterday, we're on the radical transgender movement. But the last couple of weeks, we've really been on the identity politics and the Republicans needing to have to do a much better job, including Trump, on attacking the racism of the left.
Yep.
It's something that the Republican Party has failed to do over the last 20 years. And it's been easy because they're the ones that practice identity politics, which is judging people by groups and not as individuals.
Yep.
And every Democrat listening knows it's what they do. They know it's evil. They know it's wrong. Yet they've been when as I've said, this modern identity politics movement of racism of the Democratic Party started with Justice Thomas and his confirmation hearings, and then that was the beginning of really the modern talk radio movement, and then the attacks that I saw on so many black conservatives that jumped in the 90s early on, where they were called everything as, from Uncle Tom to race traitors to everything else. And there was no pushback. And that's why we go after Bill Maher, who now understands the identity politics and how bad it is. But he wasn't criticizing it back when the racism started against blacks.
Right.
The modern identity politics racism of the Democratic Party started with blacks in the early 90s.
Yep.
In the early modern talk radio movement on black conservatives.
And it's alive and well today.
Then as more black politicians started becoming Republicans, it started all over again. What was the woman that ran in, was it Colorado or Utah? That was said not to be black.
Oh, yeah.
Can't think of her name.
She was a member of the House, and they wrote the article that she appears to be black.
Right, exactly.
But she is not. Mia Love.
Right, Mia Love, yeah. And we've said Tim Scott. Tim Scott still gets it today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It still goes on, this incredible racism. And so you've got over the last few years, last couple of decades, with the identity politics racist movement of the Democratic Party, where they've mainstreamed racism.
Yeah.
And the lack of response from Republicans on it, which they should be on constantly. They should be pounding them on it, to refer to the last caller. And they're not. And on the radical transgender movement, they should have been pounding on this when it first came up. But yeah, we used to get one thing the Democrats have helped get rid of. Nobody calls us up anymore and says, you guys are doing that dumb slippery slope thing that's never going to come true.
Yeah, no,
that's gone.
That's gone.
It's been gone for years now. We don't have to say the slippery slope anymore.
Well, and the results now are instantaneous. Now, when we talked about how years ago it started with the case in California, the one bathroom in California, but now when they start something, the turnaround on it is immediate. It's drag queens reading to your children. That became a they're just an instant civil rights movement.
I know.
And J.D. Vance is the weird one.
Well, we saw the perversion with the whole Disney thing.
Yeah.
And you still see it. Kamala Harris said it the other day.
Yeah.
That the Republicans want to ban books.
Yep.
Implying that the Republicans want to ban books for adults.
Right.
That couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
It's age-appropriate materials, not showing pornography to 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and not instructing them on sexualized content, making sure it's age-appropriate. They are for doing it. They are for perverting your children sexually perverting your children at a young age. And Kamala Harris backs that. And then she lies about it by saying, because that's the whole thing, when you want to ban books has never been about age-appropriate materials for elementary school students.
Yeah.
Banning books is a concept that you ban books that there are things that the general public and adults can't see.
Yep.
So that's a purposeful lie in order to send you in the opposite direction.
Yep.
And that's what we're dealing with the Democrats. So every day, probably for the rest of my life, this is the business we've chosen, Eric. But there's no downside to it, because you guys get criticized. Well, I don't care.
And
that's fine.
get in line.
Yeah, get in line. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, people will criticize your reputation, and I'll blast them back because they're full of it.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, Kamala Harris on the border. Response to her border ad the other day, which was just, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was, we played it. We went, oh my God. It's, as she attempts to change her opinion. Did you see her in her first unscripted moments yesterday?
Yeah, not good.
After the political prisoner for assassin and criminal trade. Wow.
Yeah.
She's, it's like she only had a sentence and she was repetitive in it.
And again, we have to ask the question, what's the thought? She's going to have to be out there. She has to speak. But here's the risk. She's got nothing every single time.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Insane week, huh?
Insane life now.
Yeah, you're right, because we used to be able to say, an insane week, I hope things calm down next week.
Well, it's like, we say that, and sometimes it does feel like, well, I guess everything on Monday will just kind of come back to normal, whatever normal is. This is normal.
Yeah.
It's exactly where we are as a society by choice on every single radical level. And we can choose to change it or not. It's that simple. It's,
well,
the fear on the left, and we do know it, and it's not that I believe it's a small thing. someone like Riley Gaines has been through, oh my gosh, that's not a small thing. People are intimidated. The other athletes who have not come out and spoken out, we understand why they don't do that. The intimidation is very clear. The mob will come after you in a heartbeat. But as a nation, we can decide this is going to end, and we can speak up in unison and say, because you can't convince me that the majority of Americans are this radical.
But here's why I say there's no consequences to coming out and fighting for what you believe in. Because it's worse, a situation accepting the bullying and accepting the threats. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's worse. It's much easier to come out and fight it and people be against you who can't make a coherent point because they can't on it. I believe that if you ask Riley Gaines and say, because when she came out full bore. But you talk to her now, and she's probably like, oh, yeah, I didn't know I had the allies that I had out here. And now we're forming women's organizations and everything, and people were scared, and I help people not be scared anymore to come out. Mm-hmm. I help women that were, being bullied and being threatened with their careers and everything else. And to me, that's worse than fighting them.
Oh, yeah.
Succumbing to their will. Their insanity, that's way worse than fighting it. I saw a meme the other day, and it was really great. It said, basically the whole thing of the meme was, if you do the wrong thing, it's really hard.
It's always hard. It's always hard to do.
And if you do the wrong thing
and have to live with the consequences.
Right, and if you do the right thing, it's really hard.
It requires work.
So it's like both are really hard because if you do the wrong thing, there are really severe consequences to doing the wrong thing to try to get out. I'm trying to get out of doing the work.
Yeah, no, it's a great point.
That I need to do the right thing, mm-hmm. But then you forget about the work to do the wrong thing. I had a discussion the other day. I had this is great last week. Remember the streaming movie that I had a bit part in? Mm-hmm. It still hasn't come out yet, but called a family thing. It's a mob movie. Mm. And this is back in December, and it was taking place at the coffee shop that I always go to, 1846 Coffee Shop, almost across the street from the barber shop, which is the bank that the Bonnie and Clyde gang robbed, but it's in Cedar Hill, Texas. Mm. And I know the owners and everything else. They sent me an email back in December saying, "Hey, we're filming a movie on a Friday night. We're doing," and it was like the last scene of part 5 of a 5-part series, of a streaming series to sell.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you want to come in and see it and be a part of it, well, let's be honest. My life is pretty dull. I don't go out much. Hmm. And I was like, well, I'm going to sleep a little bit in the afternoon. I'm going to wake up, and if I feel like going, I'll go, just to get out of the house. Mm-hmm. And I figured, well, I've been drinking coffee instead of alcohol, probably better for me.
Yeah.
So I go there, and an hour later, there I am in a talking scene. Mm. I have no acting experience at all. And so, but I get to meet the director, producer, writer of it, a guy by the name of Mark Rios, who's just, and I watched him, and I went, if you would have seen him, you would have probably thought the same thing. He's processing a million thoughts in his head, and, there's all this insanity being thrown at him, and then, boom, he's out there, and everything, you can see, everything's coming in chaos and coming out organized.
Yeah.
And I really related to it's different than what we do here, but it's the same kind of thing. You've got to organize all the insanity out there and put it out. Well, he got a hold of me, and he had wanted to do, have coffee. And so we finally had coffee, and we were talking about, why he does a ton of mob movies. He also has a great Elvis show, by the way. Oh. He does a great Elvis show. And one of it's based on Elvis's gospel music. And I said, I got to tell my co-host about this, and I forgot to tell you about it off the air.
Yeah.
And I said, I said, my co-host, especially you get into the Elvis gospel stuff. Yeah. And I told him, I said, I said, when I grew up, Elvis was my parents, and then he was in Vegas, and I was like, and didn't appreciate him. And as I told Mark, I said, I think you look at Elvis, and the soft stuff and the gospel stuff is where his voice really is so magnificent. It's much better than like things like Hound Dog.
Yeah.
Or even All Shook Up.
Right.
I mean, that stuff, the soft gospel stuff that he does, or the soft stuff he does and the gospel stuff that he does where he sings, he's not doing the fast singing, is wonderful stuff. So we had a great conversation, but then we started talking about that, just our lives. It was a great coffee session with somebody who I really didn't know well, met him once, and then we had coffee and just related so much on so many different things. But I said, people talk about crime and doing stuff. I go, but being in the mob is hard.
Yeah.
You got to produce every day. You got to produce. It's like, well, I don't want to work in the real world. Well, you got to work in that world. And you know something? Right. There's not a lot of mobsters 40 years of age.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a lot of work to avoid, being in the mob and getting killed.
It's a very complicated situation.
Or ending up in jail. And so we were doing it was the same thing. It doesn't matter what you do, whether it's the wrong thing or the right thing, it's still hard. Life is hard whether you do the right thing or the wrong thing. And the consequences of doing the wrong thing, you and I have already talked about the fact that one thing that we know, if it was Gary, life in prison, or death, feeling What do you want? Because being in a jail cell might drive me insane.
Yeah.
It actually might drive me insane. I don't know if I could do that. Freedom is everything. And we talk about being conservatives and everything else, and we even talked about this in the mentality of having a vehicle. We grew up in the generation, cars were freedom. This generation, cars are burden. It's like, think about how society has changed to get to that point. The Atlantic, and we'll get to this probably here in the next week, but it's a great column. I didn't read the entire thing yet, but it's about, why people aren't having kids. And the whole point was, we're doing all this stuff. Now government's coming, well, we need to make it cheaper. You need more tax credits. I go, that's not the reason. That's not going to increase it. And they talked about the countries that have increased all the cash incentives to have kids. I go, it's not it. It's that these people are lost. They don't know. That's the point they're trying to make. These people are lost. They don't see any value to their life.
Yeah.
And so there isn't a purpose in their life. And you start thinking about that stuff in the way that we think, and you're like, well, my God, that stuff's taught to them. But if you think about it, and we talked, and they actually mentioned climate change as one of the reasons. And we talked about Greta, for example, and remember when they were at the White House and they were talking to these young girls in high school. They said, well, when you get out of college, you go, we're never going to make it out of college because we're going to be destroyed. When we're not going to be here anymore. The world's going to be gone. When you think about the bull crap that is taught to young people today, and you and I had mentioned this years ago when Bernie Sanders was telling college kids, you can't make it because of billionaires. You have no chance to make it. Well, you think of the negativity that is thrown at young people. Look, life is hard, but it's hard whether you do the right thing or the wrong thing. And being told you're a victim and living in that state, I've talked about the state of victimhood, is a horrible place to be.
Well, it's not just living there. It's also living under somebody else's, under more and more government rules and regulations and less freedom. If you want to give in to all of this, then it's going to come with a set of rules that you have to abide by. It's society's rules. It's then actual rules and regulations. And the question is, are you willing to fight for what's right? One way or the other, you're going to go through a hardship in getting there. It's where is it you want to be?
But when you see the hopelessness, well, I can't make it because of the billionaires, and I can't make it because it's too hard and I have to work more than one job. And people look at that as being, well, yeah, you shouldn't have to work more than one job. Mm-hmm. Well, our parents who came out of the Depression never thought of that.
Right.
My dad didn't blink an eye, working 3 jobs as he was helping to build the foundation of his house in order to have kids.
Yep.
But they valued life, which means they valued kids. And that was the whole point, one of the points. And we'll get to it because I haven't read the entire article. I just saw it at the beginning of the show, and we'll probably get to it sometime next week because it's fascinating, because that's one of the challenges we have right now. One of the huge challenges. But it's like when you hit kids with everything that they can't make it, their life is useless, the world's not going to be here today. Well, who the hell wants to have kids?
Well, you diminish the value of life in your pro-abortion stance. Which does have an impact on them, on those young kids that are thinking about their future as adults. You've told them, you've indoctrinated them to believe that really there is no way to save the planet. Because you've convinced them of that. And Greta and her friends are a prime example of that. They're a product of that kind of indoctrination. And then you go out and scream and promote lawlessness while also promoting defunding the police. And you talk about making them feel insecure. Why would they want, if they believe in their heart of hearts, that these cities are becoming that our country is becoming more dangerous, then why would they want to have children if they can't protect those children? Absolutely not.
And then I think about the young people I'm surrounded by, and I'm talking about, great friends of mine who have sons and daughters and whatever, and they're all getting married and having kids. And I'm like, yeah, but what did they grow up in? They grow up in that life is valuable. They grew up in the fact that you've got a great life, ahead.
I've got 8 grandchildren.
Right. You understand. Yeah. They want to have, they want to have kids. And I'm surrounded that, not just in my friends, but my, so I call them my unofficial daughters that I have that are younger, that have had very tough lives, which is why I'm their unofficial dad. But they have very tough lives, but they all got married, having children. They're friends. And now this is Texas. We're in Texas now. The mentality may be different. I'm sure it is than places, much more liberal places. But they're having, kids, growing families.
Yep.
Because, if they have multiple kids, the wife ends up being at home. The guys are doing whatever they can. And it's very reminiscent of where we grew up and where our parents grew up. And so you look at this going on, and they talk about, worldwide what's going on, and they talk about the fact that, governments are going, well, it's because it's too expensive. And they go, it's not the reason. The government doing all these things in many of these countries that have had a head start doing it for 10 years, they're not seeing any growth. They're seeing it's still decreasing. Offering money to have kids doesn't work. That was the entire point.
Right. No, this is the society you create and the mindset that you create. But when it is a home life that is very different, then you see different results. My youngest doesn't have children. She's not able to have children. She's a special needs adult. She lives with us. My 3 oldest all have children. And that's the case for millions of us. And my grandchildren, they're such good people. They value life. And again, that's the case for millions of young people. But those morals and those values are taught in the home, and you don't allow them to be diminished outside of the home. And far too often they are. It's happening where they're convincing kids more and more, this is not a place I want to bring children into.
Yeah. And you and I talked about this a long time ago, when the whole, and it started with the Bernie Sanders thing after, was it Operation Wall Street? I can't remember. What was it called?
It's Occupy
Wall Street after it. And then we said the thing that came out of it was, the thing that college should be free. And Bernie Sanders, we remember talking. And I remember you and I remember talking and getting the one woman who went to UCLA. Remember that?
Yep.
Well, I shouldn't have to work.
Right.
It should be paid for. I shouldn't have to work. I should be able to enjoy my college experience. And it's like, wow. But she blamed the billionaires.
Yeah.
And how do the billionaires have anything to do with? Because they could give me their money.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but the fact we said, what type of evil adults put propaganda into kids that the world in front of them is absolutely horrible and they don't have a chance? Think about the evil that it takes, because this is taught, Eric.
Yeah.
What type of evil does it take to not give optimism to young people when there's plenty of reason to have optimism in this world?
Of all the nations on the planet, you should have optimism here. And you should teach, hey, it's not going to be easy. It requires work, but you can absolutely get there.
But as the point was, what doesn't? If you do the wrong thing,
That's right.
it's terribly hard.
Yep.
If you do the right thing, it's hard.
Yep.
But the consequences of doing the wrong thing are even harder than doing the right thing.
You have to live with them.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JK Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. A supporting document is a document generated or received by a motor carrier in the normal course of business that can be used by law enforcement to verify a driver's logs. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, including receipts for meals, lodging, and fuel, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, by the way, JK Rowling's statement on the whole boxing debacle yesterday coming up, plus your calls and comments. And now have you seen the new narrative out there? That this isn't a trans issue because these boxers were just trying to fool everybody that they were women.
Right.
And our point would be, but the radical transgender movement is what allowed that to happen.
Exactly.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen whenever you want. That's that simple.
And thank you.
So I'm reading here from JK Rowling yesterday. Could any picture sum up our new men's rights movement better? The smirk of a male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head and whose life's ambition he just shattered.
The look on his face and the look on her face told the entire story. Now, there are some still shots that don't do it justice in terms of how he just overpowered her. The video you have to see to get the full picture of that. But yeah, the look on his face.
I was telling you during the break, I'm waiting for someone to put a video together with "I Am Woman" playing in the background from Helen Reddy. During the fight going on. I'm expecting to see that on social media. Something like that will make on social media, because the parodies of this are going to come big time, because it was so impactful to watch it. It was so disturbing to watch that.
Yeah.
That social media is going to pick up on it, and parody sites are going to pick up on it. But the other narrative that I heard yesterday is, because the International Boxing Association back in 2023 said the two athletes, quote, attempted to deceive their colleagues and pass themselves off as women. The narrative is out there. This isn't a trans issue. These are men pretending to be women. And at that point, since it was, the anniversary of MTV starting, popped a couple of hits of acid and said, "What?" I'm kidding.
Yeah, if their defense is, hey, no, this isn't what's going on. This is just men pretending to be women. My answer is, yeah, we know.
Just like, what?
That's the whole thing.
What in the hell?
Welcome to the conversation.
And I'm like, well, it is a trans issue, because the radical transgender movement is why that has started, because as we saw, what Title IX says is there's really no rules and regulations now.
Well, that's my response to anybody saying, well, no, this is just a man pretending to be a woman. How dare you?
Yeah. How dare you say that?
You guys set the rules. We didn't write the rule book. You guys set the rules. You don't get to question it. When Obama was in power and they wrote that joint edict from the Department of Justice and Department of Education, the reason the DOJ was on that edict is because if you didn't abide by it, they would see it as you violating the student's right. No parents involved, nothing. No doctors involved. You're violating the student's right, and we'll come after you. Well, the rule book you guys wrote, you don't get to ask questions. Nobody does.
The funny thing is, when I was reading, because I started seeing it after I said, let me read some of the responses from JK Rowling, and then it was like, but he's not trans, he's not trans, he's not trans. I'm like, where are they coming from? And I went, oh, wait a minute. They're coming from where the IBC came out and said, oh, no, they tried to deceive their colleagues and pass themselves off as women. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, but you can't question it. Under the radical transgender movement, you can't question anybody's motive.
Right.
It doesn't matter what their motive is. There is no official motive.
Right.
It can be whatever you want. So I wasn't sure whether it was the trans activist saying they're not trans, or whether it was the opposite, and people that are against the radical transgender movement saying, that they're not trans. I mean, I wasn't sure where it was coming from, but I looked at it and said, okay, with the head of the IBC saying it, I know where the argument came from, but on some of them, I couldn't tell what side they were on.
Right.
Whether they were trying to, distance themselves.
You're right. There was
it was that's why I said I dropped the 2 hits of acid, because it got to be bizarre. I didn't.
Because a number of the articles just kind of floated that as part of it, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? In fact, I think a couple talked about the XY chromosome. It was like, wait, whoa, hold on a second. This is a guy competing in in women's sports. He pummeled a woman, and he's being rewarded for it. If he keeps doing it, he gets a medal.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And J.D. Vance is the weird one.
And then, if a woman beats him, that will justify that it continue.
Oh yeah, no. If he loses his opponent from Hungary is next, and she says she's not going to bow out, she's going to stay.
I'll say this: if Dot from Married with Children And if you ever watch Married with Children, Dot was when the men attempted to intimidate women, and Marcy would bring in this woman was like huge.
Yeah.
I mean, and muscular. I mean, huge though.
Right.
Probably, 400 pounds, but not like just weak and with just huge.
Built like a linebacker.
Yeah, built like a linebacker.
Uh-huh. Right.
Built like a nose tackle.
Right.
And she would come into the biggest guy and go, "What?" And I'll never forget. Whoa.
Yeah. Right.
Never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's but if that happens, then it just is going to justify saying, "See, it can be fair."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Now that's not going to happen because they fight by weight.
Right.
I'm not saying that a woman won't beat him. I don't know how good this boxer is in comparison to men. I don't know if this boxer could win a minor local boxing tournament against men. So we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just my head was like doing a calculus problem yesterday. Okay, where are they trying to go? So not trans. What do you mean not trans? Oh, yeah. Because they say he's faking that he's a woman. Yeah, right. But everybody's faking that they're a woman. And it's like, and I'm going in this. My head's going in this circle, going, this is like doing one of the calculus problems I did.
We know what they're pretending to be. We know it's a guy pretending to be a woman. We know that.
It's like, oh, man.
Yeah, and if they're using that, if anybody on the left is using that as a defensive point, sorry. You just spoiled the whole thing.
Let's go to Dan in Summers Point, New Jersey. Dan, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi.
Gentlemen, I'm a new listener, and I love the show. It's great to be on with you.
Thank you.
I'm not a lifelong Republican voter, but I've always been relatively libertarian on social issues. But it's things like this boxing thing that have been radicalizing me over the last couple of years. Not only watching this woman get chased around a boxing ring and getting repeatedly punched in the head by a man, but I was just on the ESPN website, which was probably my first mistake, but there's an article on there that says the IOC is saddened by abuse of boxers. And it's like, oh, maybe they feel a little bad about the woman being chased around a ring, being punched in the head by a man. But the article is actually about them calling the man the victim for being victimized for being transgender.
Yeah.
And it's infuriating because this woman's already a victim. She's been abused by this man in this ring, and the IOC has the guts to re-victimize this woman a second time by calling her abuser a victim. It blows my mind. I can't even believe it.
Well, no, this is how they, Dan, it's a great point, but it's also, it is how they created this entire situation, because it was, he wants to compete in women's sports. Well, he can compete in the male sports. He's a biological male. He can compete with, he doesn't feel comfortable there. Oh, okay, so all of the women should be okay with feeling uncomfortable, but he should not be. And so they make him the victim. That's part of the entire setup in order to facilitate this entire bizarre situation. Thank you for the call.
Yeah, I'm reading the article right here. I found it. IOC is saddened by abuse of two boxers facing gender questions.
Yeah.
But this is ESPN News Services. Watch how they write it. Just to show you where ESPN is. The International Olympic Committee on Thursday defended its decision to allow two female boxers to compete. They're not two female boxers. Despite an ongoing gender controversy saying the pair were facing aggression because of an arbitrary decision.
Right.
Wow. The IOC is saddened by the abuse the two athletes are currently receiving. Is the biological female receiving abuse?
Well, yesterday,
I thought she was receiving compassion outside of the boxing ring.
Yeah.
It was all compassion for her.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, the other boxer will compete on Friday, later today.
The IOC said the IBA decision to disqualify the boxers last year was arbitrary and the main cause for the furor that has seen people such as British author JK Rowling and billionaire Elon Musk voice their opposition to them competing in the games. These two athletes were victims of sudden and arbitrary decision by the IBA, the IOC said in a statement. There you go. The IBA issued a statement Wednesday in which it said both boxers did not have a testosterone examination last year, but were subject to a separate and recognized test for their disqualification. Now, they did say the XY chromosome in the other story that I read. They don't have it in this story here.
Right.
That they did find the XY, they found the Y chromosome, and that would be the reason.
Right.
So, but there you go. There's this support there from ESPN.
Right. Well, again, it is going to, the left is going to continue to champion this insanity over and over again.
Yeah, and I don't believe that JK Rowling or Elon Musk is against two men with XY chromosomes fighting each other or two women with XX chromosomes fighting each other.
Nope.
Are they?
Nope. I've never seen either of them.
What's it like being
imply that?
What is it like being in an ESPN meeting, editorial meeting?
Haven't they said multiple times we're going to get away from taking positions? We're just going to try but they can't.
Yeah.
They can't.
Well, you take a position, and even Fox News did. Mm-hmm. Fox News will call, if you're transgender, they'll call you what your identity is, not what your biological sex is. Right. We've already called Fox News on that.
Yep.
Well, we're not playing that game. Yes, you are. As soon as you say she, and it's a he, you're playing politics with it.
Right.
You're taking a side.
Right. Because part of the attempt is to change the language, and once you engage in that new language, then you're part of it.
How many Fox News stories have we found that?
Oh, yeah.
Online.
Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We'll take a look at some of the polling that's out there. It's fascinating because something's wrong with some of the polls. We'll get to that. Plus, some of our audio of the week. Man, I'm telling you, we will play the Harris ad saying she's tougher on on the border than Trump is.
Yeah.
And then we've got to read parts of this. And plus, latest Rasmussen is out, shows Trump up 5. That's likely voter poll, 49-44. Daily Cost Civics shows Harris up for 49-45.
Yeah.
Then Harvard Harris poll shows Trump +4, 52-48. Reuters show Harris up. Morning Consult shows up 1. Morning Consult, Harris up 1. Wall Street Journal, Trump +2. Okay, we're going back too far. I want to stick to the ones from the last couple of days.
Right.
So that's...
Yeah, I think, again, we're going to have to wait a minute for some of these polls to really catch up with what's going on. And then you get into the state by state, especially the battleground states, and what those polls look like. That's where you're going to see the real difference.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.